Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the second annual speaker series for Chicago House. We're so glad you're here. I'm Stan Sloan. I'm the CEO of Chicago House, and I am in my 11th year here, I think, and we're so glad to have Dr. Albright here. It's such an honor. We have, to date, raised about $250,000 through this event, so thank you to all of our sponsors.
And it was just a most moving video, and I'm very, very honored to participate in this second annual Chicago House Luncheon. And it's such a pleasure for me to be back in Chicago. For me, Chicago is a very special place. I lived here in 1960, and I cast my first vote in Chicago for John F. Kennedy. And I hope it was counted many times. I lived here for several years, and I have always returned to Chicago with great pleasure. And speaking of which, there really is something very special about the kind of women that are attracted to Chicago, from Jane Addams and Gwendolyn Brooks to Mahalia Jackson and Hillary Clinton and, of course, Michelle Obama. And Cynthia. This is a city where women are unafraid to stand up and speak out and make a difference. And the same can obviously be said about Chicago House and Reverend Sloan and the people that are associated with it. For a quarter of a century, this organization has been helping people who have been held back by poverty and bigotry and disease or disabilities. And this compassionate mission is based on a certain philosophy, a way of thinking that can, it seems to me, be boiled down to three basic principles. First, each and every individual counts. Second, when one of us is hurting, we all slow down, and when one of us goes forward, we all make progress. And third, saying the right thing is nice, but doing the right thing is much, much better. In other words, it's not enough to dream, we have to act. When you think about it, these elementary principles are the foundation of what America is supposed to be all about, and they are the central pillars upon which healthy and united communities can be built. They are the essential ingredients for any successful democracy, and they should be the cornerstone of what our country stands for around the globe. Despite the size, this club did make a difference, and the first year, we launched a worldwide campaign to halt trafficking in human beings. And the following year, we issued a wake-up call concerning the need to mobilize against the spread of HIV and AIDS. And I think you will agree that this was the right focus for our efforts. Over the past 3 decades, 30 million people have died as a result of this one epidemic, and millions more are still living with the disease and require daily treatment. During my years as Secretary of State, I saw firsthand the contrast between good leadership on this issue and bad. In Uganda, the president of the country urged every cabinet member, school, church, and business to promote AIDS awareness. They called this the big noise, and it cut infection rates by 50%. But in Kenya, AIDS activists received no help from the head of state, who opposed the use of condoms and who was offended at the very idea of sex education. My response was to say, very diplomatically, "I'm sorry, sir, but you're nuts." The fight against AIDS begins with personal responsibility towards one another. For example, during that same visit to Africa, I met with women who'd been infected by HIV and as a result were being shunned by their families. And I talked to doctors who told me that women refusing to be tested because they didn't want to be shunned, and of men refusing to believe anything they were told about the disease or how it could be prevented. And I also held in my arms children who'd been born with AIDS and who were already dying from it. And at that moment, I felt a terrible sadness. And here I was, America's Secretary of State, and yet I felt completely without power. And at the same time, I couldn't have imagined a more appropriate place for a representative of our country to be. Those of you who have volunteered to help the ill and the needy probably know what I mean, and we can't always achieve miracles, but we will never accomplish anything unless we first care. In the decades since I left office, the battle against HIV and AIDS has ebbed and flowed, and according to the most recent reports, we are finally gaining some ground, and treatments are now more effective, and educational efforts have made headway. The number of children infected at birth has fallen by 25%, and more people with AIDS here have access to antiretroviral therapy than ever before. But there are also signs of complacency and a dangerous risk that opinion leaders will confuse winning a few skirmishes with prevailing in the war. I don't have to tell this audience that the struggle against AIDS has not yet been won, not around the world and not here at home. We can't relax now. We must continue the fight on every front, including education and research and treatment, until permanent victory is achieved. But even this is not the end of what we must do. It truly is only the beginning. Here at Chicago House and worldwide, we understand that it's not enough to examine one social issue at a time in isolation from others. There are direct and reinforcing connections among poverty, pollution, disease, vulnerability to armed strife, and the denial of women's rights. A few years ago, I wrote a book entitled The Mighty and the Almighty. It was about the United States foreign policy and God.
And it's a Chicago House brooch that we'd like to present to you.
Thank you very, very much. And I'm so delighted to have been a part of this. And what a wonderful organization. What great work you do, and in a great, great city. And I salute all of you, and happy holidays. And you may look exactly like the president, but the president is doing everything he can, I think, to make sure that the hope of America that I talked about really does come true, because he so believes in it. And of course, I believe in him. So thank you very much.
Thank you.